Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Today is October 1st. We are here on a very rainy and windy day to bring you stories to share with your friends.
There's a lot of unhappy trees around us.
There are. I had to drive around one.
Probably not going to get a lot of sympathy from the people south of us.
Yeah, who are dealing with a much worse windy and wet day.
Oh, but let's soldier on. Even though we've been battered by winds, we're still going to come here and do this for you because we love you. And OpenAI also loves you. That's not true at all. No, they
love your money.
They want to conquer the future. I don't even know if they want the money at this point. I think they're going to skip straight to power, right?
Yeah.
Literal power.
OpenAI pitched the White House an unprecedented data center build-out, 5 gigawatts. This reads to me a little bit like coal companies when it's like, oh, we're using coal to generate electricity. We need more coal mines.
They pointed out that 5 gigawatts, Miami. It could power Miami, but it's going to be one data center. That's the future we're going into.
I wonder if anybody from DARPA is saying, maybe we should build data centers in a distributed fashion to better withstand the inevitable global conflict that's coming.
Well, yeah, they'll have them for themselves.
Well, if we're going to do one 5 gigawatt data center, we'd better do 2, right? Have some redundancy.
Yeah, because Anthropic's going to need one too.
And then I think about this and I think they can't even get power to where I live.
Yeah.
No, this power is not going to be for you.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not for the citizenry.
But in the inevitable contraction, though, all of that cheap power might be useful for something. This is remember when they built out the fiber infrastructure across the United States and then there was like 2 decades of dark fiber? It's going to be like that. We're going to have dark transmission lines.
Well, let's think about that. We don't have money to upgrade our infrastructure, our bridges, our power, but today they did announce another $16 billion for foreign wars. But what could be more important than even power and bridges?
Ancient U.S. air traffic control systems won't get a tech refresh before 2030.
Some of these were 30 to 40 years old, which I thought was staggering.
It's also exciting that air travel is still just a hellish mess. Like even air travel right after the pandemic when everybody was skittish about air travel, it was still a horrible mess and not fun. And decidedly, like if you live within 10 driving hours distance of a city, you generally just don't even bother trying to take a flight.
Well, a lot of stuff is broken. The government just cannot get us our basic baseline needs. They're worried about other things. And right now, they're very worried about the tech companies who seem to be usurping their power.
The Justice Department has probed a supermicro computer, the Wall Street Journal reports, and this is a Reuters headline. But as far as I can tell, nobody actually has a reasonable source for this. This is one of those bait articles that are maybe useful for like Level 1 discusses. There's a lot of Wall Street manipulation going on now, and I think this is Wall Street manipulation. Remember we did the grain of rice computer thing with Supermicro 2, and this reads like that. It's like, oh, they delayed to double check something in their financial thing, which I think was kicked off by a Wall Street insider to then spin into something. It's like they've manufactured the crisis and are now selling the headline.
Wouldn't be the first time. But one entity that I do think, they say where there's smoke, there's fire. Maybe not with Supermicro, but I think there's a large blaze here.
I would agree with that.
There has been for quite some time.
The DOJ has sued Visa for locking out rival payment platforms. And the lead that the article here misses is that checks. You remember checks? You would write a paper check and do stuff with that?
I still use checks every now and then. Rarely.
There was a system where you could do checks electronically. And there wasn't any merchant fees with that. And it's so weird because we don't use e-checks anymore. And your bank could issue you checking accounts that were deposit only. And there were also debit only. So you could move, like, say, $300 into a certain check number, or routing number thing, account number, and then make a payment out of that. And you could be assured that somebody wouldn't take more money than you authorized them to because of that mechanism. But a lot of banks have kind of deprecated that. It goes through a different system than Visa. And Visa is at fault for marginalizing those payment options.
A lot like the Google case. The damning evidence here comes from the internal quotes where they said things to each other like, hey, Apple is getting into payments. How are we going to stop that? How are we going to get around that? And their way of doing it, again, much like Google, was to make friends with everybody, bring them into the Visa network, and therefore never have to compete with them.
Was it them or Google this week who said something about leashing another company? I can't remember what
I don't
article
remember
I read
because
that.
it was like the same story.
Yeah.
There were also a couple of people in here who had quotes where they were raising their hand and they were like, well, should we really do this?
the whistleblowers, like,
Yeah.
hey.
They were condemned.
Isn't I'm surprised that no one has like weaponized the evangelicals because isn't what Visa's doing against a lot of religion where you just charge a middleman fee for things with no value add? It's like that is verboten in a lot of religions.
We should be having jubilees every 10 years too, but we don't do that either.
Are you trying to start a movement?
I mean, everything is all, it's like weaponize this, that, and the other to just cause disruption. And it's like, it's weird how nothing like that ever happens with the payment card industry.
Yeah.
Has St. Wendell declared Deus Vult? And we are at war with China and Russia on paper, basically. And so, of course, we cannot trust anything that comes from those countries.
The U.S. proposes a ban on smart cars with Chinese and Russian technology because we've looked into what we can do with Tesla smart cars, and it's really terrifying. Let me just SSH into the steering control system.
Well, that's exactly what they say. They're like, oh, if they just shut off all these cars, it would cause massive delays and problems, and we're scared of that.
You know what else this article missed? The Russian warlord guy that had the Tesla Cybertruck, Musk turned it off remotely.
That was that the mercenary guy or was that the Belarusian guy?
No, well, I think he's from Belarus, but he was supplying arms and like he's on the naughty list, and so it was like, oh, he got a Cybertruck somehow. Click.
Well, that's going to happen in it's software and hardware, but they're going to stagger it. One happens in 2025, one happens in 2026. So if you're dying for a Chinese EV,
Now is the
you
time.
got to get it done. And we need more batteries because we're going to have all this power. And when you're generating all that nuclear power, you're going to need to store it right at the data centers, not at your home, no, but at the data centers. How are we going to do that?
Biden awards $3 billion to boost domestic battery production. But I got to say, solar plus energy storage really is a lot of fun. Thinking about doing that at my house, even though solar is kind of crappy around here.
Did your power go out today?
It has been very, very unstable.
Yeah.
The battery backups have been working double overtime.
That freaks our dog out every time it makes a sound. Yeah.
Well, you know who else is working overtime? The bots and the deepfakes and the AI. And not for the first time, but in one of the more high-profile incidents, it actually pulled one over for a little while.
Deepfake caller poses as Ukrainian official in exchange with key senator. It's like, wait a minute, what's going on?
They didn't say exactly they didn't quote, but they said they were asking very pointed questions about Ukraine and some foreign policy stuff. And you could tell this guy was like, wait a minute, another politician would never be this honest.
Something's wrong.
And so they caught on to it and they cut it off. But they don't know who was responsible. He pretended to be somebody from the Ukrainian government, right?
Yes.
And oh boy, do we have a California block for you today. So many California laws have been made this week.
New California law requires one-click subscription cancellations. So if you want to stop Netflix or you want to stop your Prime subscription or you want to stop YouTube Red or you want to stop any of the, it actually talks about regular old paper newspapers, like your old neighborhood newspaper. It's like, it's apparently really hard to unsubscribe from those. So all of that has to be one-click unsubscription now.
It was already, if you subscribe online, you unsubscribe online. But of course, everybody dark patterned it.
Yeah, so it's very hard to find.
So now we have a new law that makes it, if it's one click to sign up, it's one click to get away. And when it comes to user data, we should just default to not having that, right? And that would make sense. And you would think
It's opt-in, yeah.
a liberal governor like Newsom would definitely be on the people's side with this, right?
California governor vetoes a bill requiring opt-out signals for sale of user data.
So your mobile was supposed to get a rule that says, hey, I'm going to toggle this on one time. No matter what I do on this phone, send the opt-out signal. And Gavin Newsom has said, no, we must not allow that.
I like the idea. So I don't know if this was an official proposal or not, but the World Wide Web Consortium had a thing that you could set in your browser headers. So like in your browser headers, it was basically a new do not track. Remember that? Remember the do not track flag?
Yeah, that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So, well, no, that was in the Mozilla story.
Yeah. So like you toggle that on and then it doesn't track you. And it's like, we already have this. It's just nobody followed the rules.
Well, there was some kind of loophole with that.
Yeah.
One, so they came up with the other one.
Do not track 2, electric boogaloo.
But this will do neither. And that's interesting because Mr. Newsom said, we have to be kind of hands off. I don't want to step into mobile and tell people how they have to build phones or how they have to use their phones. And then he immediately did this.
California passes law to ban or restrict smartphones in schools because those children are just super unruly. Children are monsters. Somebody pointed out in the news last week that with the children-only internet, the children would be monsters to themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not wrong. But I didn't consider that.
Yeah, the bullying would probably be worse.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It would be concentrated.
Is it Lord of the Flies? Lord of the Flies internet?
You'd end up with kids on the adult internet, and when they found them, like, why are you on the adult internet? It's be like, because no one talks to me on the kids' internet.
That might be a fun way to suss out the kids that really need a lot of counseling and or re-education and or, mind flayer, mind-controlled device re-education.
I can't overtly detect sarcasm there, but I hope it's present. And this was the other story.
Maybe this is the one where they talked about leashing other companies.
I think this was, yeah. Google, they really don't know how to do those internal communications.
No, it's not subtle.
They need to get a coach to help them with this.
Google emails show unease over advertising dominance. It was literally an email where it was like Hans emailing the other guy. Are we the baddies?
They point out that they bought other advertising companies and then immediately destroy them like a year or two later and absorb their powers.
And that was the plan.
Yeah.
They never intended to do anything with it except for park it, strip the parts they wanted, and then let it die, which is exactly what they did.
And at least 2 of those acquisitions, the advertising company had a genuinely innovative product that Google subsequently murdered.
They love doing that. I screwed this one up. This one was supposed to be the California block.
California drivers may soon get speed warning devices as standard. It's like your phone will track your speed. Your vehicle can track your speed. Other vehicles can track your speed with the car-to-car communication. There's a lot of avenues there for enforcing desirable behaviors.
And yet I still don't have a comms wheel to yell at other drivers when they pass me.
Now, it's kind of nerfed, which I think they feel like they can't do it all at once, right? You got to baby step this because people will really get upset. So it's only going to beep at you or give you haptic feedback on pushing the pedal back or whatever. It doesn't ever actually stop you from speeding. But you can be damn sure that it's logging it and probably going to give it to your insurer, right? That's the way they'll stop us.
We should all collectively tweet at Elon Musk to roll out an emote system for Tesla vehicles that you have to turn on. It's off by default. But all the millennials and younger toggle it on and they can emote at one another. That would be hilarious.
Till somebody gets shot, which would happen the next day.
But what if they did this is what would be amazing, is they'd do only positive emojis, but then one would become a designated negative one, even though it was supposed to be positive, and then there'd be a whole new layer of communication happening.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Or you just tape over certain parts of it and make it negative. And, wow, I didn't realize how much California there was.
A lot, yeah.
This one, though, I do not disagree with at all, because we've all learned that, we have the Redbox thing, we've got the Amazon stuff going on. Now, Disney might be memory holding some stuff because it was unpopular. You didn't really buy it, and they shouldn't call it a purchase.
California's new law forces digital stores to admit you're just licensing content, not buying it. This is, a part of the Deus intervention property rights. Like in America, apparently we're big believers in property rights, and the amount of erosion of property rights for digital goods the last 30 years has been breathtaking.
So if you are trying to, quote unquote, sell a product that the person doesn't really get to keep, then you cannot use the word buy or purchase without some kind of disclaimer that says, hey, we say buy now.
Actually buying it, yeah.
You're not buying it.
There should be we should develop a new verb for what you're doing. I guess it's kind of renting. No, because it's not. We're not thieving. Like I'm thinking, as a designer, what do I put on the button that's not buy now? What should the text be?
License now.
License,
now.
yeah. That's how they get around it, right? You're buying a license. And here's a tale as old as time, or at least as old as major phone and internet service providers have existed, because they've always been bad. And obviously, because they're bad, you want to replace them, right? But then they use the lawfare to stop that.
Cox asks court to block Rhode Island plan for broadband expansions. They say that the speed tests submitted are not accurate, and it does actually serve areas eligible for broadband grants. But when the research was done, again, it was the same games that we've covered before, where it's like, we covered that zip code. You cover one house in that zip code. That does not count.
They also said, hey, guys, you blindsiding us with this. No one told us that you were doing municipal broadband. We could have helped you. We could have been a part of this. And the people in the government pointed out, it's like, here's where we invited you for the preliminary hearing. Here's where you didn't respond to this letter.
Receipts. Yeah.
Here's where, and it's like they had just completely ignored them the entire time. Came in at the end and tried to stop it. And they might succeed at that.
Yeah, this is really, really just... This is the kind of insanity that we're up against when you let these large companies basically just distort reality. Like, it's like this. It's 2024. I don't care about all this job owning. All we need is fast internet. Like, let me on the pole with a stapler. I will staple up my own fiber cable. Come on.
Well, we cannot depend on the government to do it, because boy, are they bad at everything. You would think that, like, after you pushed out this production update, you would do some basic testing. You would test maybe at least 2 names to make sure that they're on there. They did not.
Montana voting systems have been shut down after Kamala Harris was left off of the ballot.
Oops.
Oopsie. Now, this is an early voting system, but...
Still not great. Not good optics.
Just a glance.
Yeah.
Just a quick glance could have told you that there might be an issue there.
Did you see Maggie Smith passed away today?
I just saw it there.
Yeah, she's on the sidebar.
And this guy, now I remember reading a book about this dude. Plus, he was in that
Dope sick.
show, Kevin Costner show. He was the Kevin Costner character. And I remember reading that book and saying to myself, they didn't give this guy any time. They put him in the government afterwards. They gave him a job. Yeah, and it's continuing.
West Virginia's new drug czar was once addicted to opioids himself. Okay.
He says he's uniquely qualified to deal with the problem because he was a perpetrator. He destroyed a lot of lives.
I think he's less culpable than the Sacklers.
Well, that's a big gap.
I'm sure they're not paying him very well.
Anything better than prison is being
Yeah, you
paid
get government benefits. Come on.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
doing
yeah, the
They
government
have better
benefits are
insurance
nice.
than us.
Yeah, they really
Plus,
do.
I think they gave him his medical license back, right?
They did, yeah. We're hard up on doctors. Have you not noticed?
Do you trust that guy?
More than some of them.
And Mozilla is not the company you usually hear about with these complaints, right? They're kind of the good guy, but the EU, the EU doesn't like them.
Mozilla hit with privacy complaint in the EU over Firefox tracking tech. This is that new company that Mozilla is getting in bed with, where it's like, this is responsible ad tracking. The EU disagrees.
That's GDPR. What was the name of that thing? Started with a C, right?
Oh. I made the exact same thing
Was
as
it
you.
privacy preserving attribution?
Yeah.
PPA.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the technology, but it turns out that it's not. You can still de-anonymize that, which is sort of a root problem. And it's been, I believe it's been demonstrated that it's pretty trivial to de-anonymize those types of tracking points anyway.
The thing about it is, it's supposed to replace the cookie tracking, but both Google and Firefox have backed off of that. So no one's blocking the cookies, but now they're also doing this other thing and they're opting you in. You have to opt out. So maybe it's a little scummy. Bhutan. Did you guys know where Bhutan was before today?
It was in Asia. I didn't know where.
In between China and India. Little tiny place. I've never heard of them. I'll admit my geographic ignorance. But they are all in on crypto.
Government of Bhutan holds $828 million in Bitcoin, Arkham data shows, which is like, what, half of their GDP?
Do they even have 800 million people? I think there might be a Bitcoin per person. So they've never talked about this, as far as I know, or maybe just nobody's paying attention. But somebody at Arkham was looking at the blockchain and they were like, oh, wow, look at these guys.
Or is it the most amazing VPN service located there? Proxy for people in China.
Well, down in Korea, they are having a big explosion, which apparently we're also having in our schools, and they are taking a proactive approach.
South Korea to criminalize watching or possessing adult explicit deepfakes.
Watching is a little weird, right? Like, what if I don't know what I'm looking at till I see it?
Yeah, you don't know.
I don't know how you
Or what if,
legislate that. How do you punish that?
what if you're halfway through it and you're like, wait a minute, I know that person. And you're like, oh, no.
Yeah.
I was thinking more like, we've had the celebrities in the news in America for their debauchery, and it's like, I don't know if this is a deep fake or not. These are celebrities and a thing. I don't know. The headlines are crazier than reality.
And bad news for those of you who do subscribe to YouTube Premium. Thanks. I mean, we get a little piece of that, but they're not making it easy for you, are they?
When will it stop? YouTube Premium prices increased again in numerous countries. Womp womp.
Not the U.S.
A lot of other ones on this list,
lots
though.
of countries.
It seems like it's a significant percentage increase, though.
Yeah, not small. Although some of those numbers are really big, just like compared to the dollar, that's actually not that huge.
Well, I mean, like 179 SEK to 279 SEK in Sweden. That seems like a lot.
But they're
Almost
doing
double.
that from a position of power because YouTube has pulled ahead of every streaming service at this point, especially Disney, and Disney is not loving that.
You know what Google almost has with Gemini? I actually tried to do this with the Gemini thing. It was, hey, Google, how do I deal with getting Star Trek? Like, I just want to watch Star Trek. Where do I go? What do I do? And it's like, oh, I've got some Star Trek on YouTube Red. It's like, interesting.
Did you see that meme I posted that was like, we need to make things easier. Everyone should have Star Trek. There should be a button on your remote to get Star Trek.
And we have some heightened censorship. We all knew this was coming in the lead up to the election. I think the influencer debacle from earlier in the month was what kicked this off.
Meta has banned Russian state media outlet RT over foreign interference activity. They had some pretty good examples. I don't know if CNN Business published them because they're kind of gruesome.
Al Jazeera also kicked out of Israel and Palestine.
Wow.
And we're doing social media on a Tuesday today. It's
Weird.
crazy, but it made the stories balance out a little bit better. And this is, I kind of expected this,
Folded quick.
but it's a sad day. When you get arrested, it turns out you'll do what they say eventually.
Telegram will now provide some user data to authorities. Did he get a leave? Did they let him leave?
I'm sure they did now.
I think he's still in France.
He's like bailed out on house arrest or something, right?
Yeah, I think so. But he's still in pocket.
It's probably got a pretty nice place.
Yeah.
Probably.
So yeah, they will give, it's not a lot of stuff. They'll give your IP address and your number. Not your history, supposedly. But who knows? Sure, they're not done yet. And Elon Musk has kind of a pattern, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He does.
Outrage, and then do something, just fly off the handle and do something crazy, and then wait a little bit, and then quietly put it all back.
X reverses course in Brazil. So they are going to block the dozen or so accounts that it got up to in order to not have both Starlink and X blocked in Brazil.
And they're going to appoint local people who have to be, called up if you have a problem with them. And they're going to allow government reporting to those people to take things down. Basically, everything that Brazil demanded.
Yeah. Do you think that was someone behind the scenes who was shaking him, being like, stop it, stop it?
Yeah. And the free speech absolutist, boy, that was a fun story, wasn't it? But it turns out maybe not completely true. Although this was also kind of doxing, except do they still have that policy? Because it's not on the website anymore?
The Verge's headline is X has blocked links to hacked JD Vance's dossier and suspends the journalist who published it.
So this was actually from the Trump campaign when they were vetting him. But then
VP, yeah.
But then the Iranian hackers, or allegedly the Iranian hackers, got a hold of it and tried to leak it to various journalism sources. Most of them didn't touch it, but this one guy did, and it got banned from X, which is kind of a callback to the whole Hunter Biden laptop story, which Elon Musk used as the linchpin of his argument for free speech absolutism.
Because it turned out to be true.
But this is also true as far as we know.
Yeah. I also like
It's weird how he tends to flip-flop like that.
How Walls was like, yeah, there's a lot of skeletons in my closet too. Yeah. It's just like...
You get to that level of politics, I think we all know, right?
Oh, listen, I've fed orphans directly into the orphan crushing machine. There's probably pictures of me on MySpace.
But I patted their head and held their hand before they went in.
Well, what this teaches us, and what we're about to see in this story, is if you have enough money, then you can deny anything about reality. No matter how much we all know that it's true, you can just say it's not because you have a lot of money.
The Verge's headline is Mark Zuckerberg says there is no causal connection between social media and teen mental health. Despite this, he says Meta is ready to comply with child safety laws. I mean, he's probably not wrong, but at the same time, it doesn't help either.
You don't think so? I think it's probably really bad for him.
I think that the things that make it bad in the first place were always there. Because I think back to the social hierarchy in school and all of the other kind of stuff. And there were a lot of kids that got off on making other kids feel really terrible.
Yeah, except the difference being with social media is that you don't get off the bus and get away from that.
Yeah.
Like, it follows you home and it follows you everywhere.
And
that's true.
You, like, either you don't participate in the world that all the other kids are in, or you deal with it. I mean, I guess that was kind of always true as well. I don't know. You could have been the weird kid who was just into, I don't know, farming or something, raising your animals.
The weird kid showed up for a basketball game. We should make him feel terrible. Yeah.
I don't know. Now, there's a lot of studies that are probably goal-seeked to prove that it's bad, but also just the state of our children these days, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that feels like something's off. Maybe that's just the generational divide that's inevitable.
It's okay to be different.
No, it's not.
Not on
Conform.
Facebook. And maybe one of the very good indications of the problems on Facebook is not just the kids. It's that people don't really think critically about anything. They just post and they move on.
The viral goodbye Meta AI Copypasta will not protect you.
These go around on Facebook frequently. Like, I see my elderly neighbors do this. My mom has occasionally fallen for this, and every time I'm like, Mom, doesn't work that way.
I've seen a couple of these where by the end it gets to the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme.
So
yeah, people just paste it anyway, yeah.
The idea here is this is an image, which is funny because it's not even text.
Yeah.
So the language model will have to use on-screen character recognition in order to even read it. But it's some kind of thing about like, hey, I'm posting this to let you know that you're not allowed to AI track me or use my posts or whatever. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it's been going for years. AI is just the new one.
Actually, probably if you post this, they put an extra flag on your advertising profile, like this person is an idiot.
This person is extra susceptible to.
You can sell them anything.
Ugh.
These are people who believe that the teens are okay because of Facebook.
My elderly neighbors once asked, when I told them that I worked in like web development stuff, and I was like, yeah, we like make websites, trying to kind of dumb it down a little. They were like, can you guys make a new Facebook? And I was like,
because for a lot of people, like Facebook is the only website, right?
yeah.
Like, okay, there's Google, Facebook, and my bank, right?
Yeah.
YouTube.
Where I pay my electric bill. Yeah.
Everybody in my neighborhood pays their electric bill in person.
Really?
Which creates a giant log jam at the power company, which you have to drive past.
Wow.
That's rough. It's very rough.
It's weird out there.
Did you engagement challenge? What did you see this week that was good news?
Yeah, that's a good one. We'll see. Hopefully it's good stuff.
that you feel good about? Or what's the positive light on some story that we covered? The positive aspect. I mean, eventually, a lot of the stories that we cover, eventually, I think it's like at some point the dam will burst and everyone's, the consciousness will wake up and say, wait a minute, this is idiocy. Like the whole ISP thing's being like, yes, I should pay my ISP more money for an objectively worse connection. That makes logical sense. At some point, that stops. Like people wake up and start thinking of it in terms of the brass tacks of, wait a minute, they're ripping me off.
How long did people believe that certain people should be in charge because God said so?
Yeah, it took a while to get that corrected.
Yeah.
Although, we've regressed somewhat of late.
Anyway, positive thoughts. We will see you guys in the next one.
Remind me about the fall conditions during the fall of the Roman Empire.